Imagine standing before some of the greatest constructions ever seen by mankind. Structures that defied human understanding of engineering, faith, and endurance. Buildings that to this day continue to fascinate and inspire. Each one carries with it a legacy of challenges, miracles, and extraordinary achievements. In this video, we will explore 4 of these biblical constructions, whose stories have spanned millennia, defying logic and sparking the imagination. But more than that, not just large monuments of stone and wood, they are testaments to faith, courage, and the human capacity to achieve the impossible. Each of these constructions, with its complexity and meaning, leaves us with a message that resonates to this day. And stay tuned, because the last construction we are going to explore will leave you speechless. The story behind it is so impactful that you will not be able to believe what is revealed. Get ready to discover mysteries, reflections, and incredible stories of overcoming and faith. Let's start our journey. Let's start with one of the most fascinating and mysterious stories in the Bible, Noah's Ark. Imagine for a moment that you are Noah, the man chosen by God to build a colossal refuge in a world about to be devastated by a global flood. No cranes, no modern tools, no technology we have today. Just wood, calloused hands, and unwavering faith. Now imagine the size of this ark. Scripture describes it as being about the size of a modern cargo ship. It was approximately 440 feet long, 74 feet wide, and 44 feet high. That's almost the size of a football field. How did Noah accomplish this feat with the limited resources of his time? Would it have been possible without the tools we know today? The Bible says that the ark was built over a period of about 120 years. Imagine how long it would have taken to build a structure of this size, out of wood, without the help of modern tools. During this time, Noah faced not only the challenge of building, but also the constant mockery of a society that did not believe in his mission. Scripture speaks of the ark as a divine project, and Noah, being the only righteous man at the time, followed God's instructions to build each part of the vessel, which was to have several compartments to store the necessary animals and resources. Furthermore, the construction of the ark was made with gopher wood, a type of wood mentioned in the Bible, and covered with bitumen to make it waterproof. This means that Noah not only had to cut and transport large amounts of wood, but he also had to ensure that the ark was waterproof, which required astonishing construction skill and knowledge, especially for the time. But is Noah's Ark just a metaphor or a literal account of a historical event? In 1959, a Turkish pilot flew over Mount Ararat and spotted a formation that resembled the hull of a ship. Since then, several archaeological expeditions have attempted to identify traces of Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat, and some of these missions claim to have found pieces of petrified wood and structures that resemble a vessel. However, to this day, science has not been able to definitively confirm the existence of the Ark. The question that arises is, can we rely on faith alone to believe in the veracity of this account? Or is science about to reveal more evidence that proves that the Ark really existed? What do you think? Do you think Noah's Ark is just an ancient myth, or is there something real behind this story? Do you believe that archaeological expeditions may one day confirm the existence of the Ark? Leave your opinion in the comments. Imagine yourself in front of an ancient city, surrounded by walls so imposing and resistant that they seemed insurmountable. It was Jericho, one of the oldest cities in history, and its walls were truly a symbol of strength and invincibility. They were robustly built, with double walls and an impressive structure that rose more than 10 meters high. But surprisingly, the walls fell not by war machines like battering rams or catapults, but by the power of faith. The Bible tells us that the army of Israel, led by Joshua, marched around the city of Jericho for 7 days, blowing trumpets and shouting. And on the 7th day, something incredible happened. The walls collapsed, allowing the Israelites to take the city. God's order was clear. March silently around the walls for 6 days, and on the 7th, in a triumphant march, the sound of trumpets and shouts of faith would be enough to destroy the walls that protected Jericho. But what does archaeology have to say about this story? During the 20th century, several excavations in Jericho brought to light impressive ruins of the city's ancient walls. What caught the archaeologists' attention was the evidence of a sudden collapse of the walls. Some theories suggest that an earthquake may have occurred just as the Israelite army was marching, causing the walls to collapse. Jericho, after all, sits on an active fault line, which makes this possibility plausible. But if an earthquake did occur, the big question is, how could the Israelites have known exactly when it would happen? Could Joshua, the leader of the army, accurately predict the moment when the ground would shake and the walls would fall? This raises a fascinating question. Was this event merely a natural phenomenon, or did divine power play a key role in the fall of the walls? Some scholars argue that the biblical account reflects a direct intervention by God, who used the silent march and the cries of faith as instruments of a miracle. The idea that the sound of trumpets and shouts could have caused the walls to collapse is certainly difficult to comprehend from the perspective of modern physics. But for believers, it is a manifestation of divine power in action. What do you think? Was it the power of faith or something more? Perhaps a combination of natural and spiritual forces intertwined in a unique way? Comment below with your thoughts. Let us travel back in time to majestic Jerusalem, where Solomon's temple was erected, one of the greatest wonders of ancient Israel. Imagine a building so grand that its walls were covered in pure gold, reflecting the sunlight in a heavenly way. The Bible describes the temple as the most sacred place on earth, the dwelling place of God among the Israelites. It was not only an impressive feat of engineering, but a profound symbol of the divine presence. The construction of Solomon's temple was a monumental task. Stones were cut with extraordinary precision, without the sound of hammers or visible tools, as the Bible describes. These heavy, precisely cut stones were transported and positioned with a perfection that defies our modern comprehension. The temple was adorned with fine wood from Lebanon, one of the most important materials, most valuable and resistant of the time, and its internal structure was a spectacle in itself, with details such as golden cherubs and palm trees carved into the walls. In addition to the pure gold that covered most of the temple, it also housed the Holy of Holies, the most sacred place where the Ark of the Covenant rested, representing the presence of God among his people. The temple was not just a physical building, but a place where the connection between man and God became tangible through the sacrifices and prayers offered by the Israelites. But what does archaeology reveal about Solomon's temple? Although the original temple was destroyed in 586 BC when the Babylonians invaded Jerusalem, excavations in Jerusalem offer valuable insights into its grandeur and impact. For many years, the exact location of the temple was a mystery, as it was destroyed and not many visible traces remained. Today, excavations on the Temple Mount reveal some of the foundations of what is believed to be Solomon's temple, but the area is surrounded by a complex religious and political context. Furthermore, the Second Temple, which was rebuilt after the Babylonian exile, is the temple most often associated with Jesus Christ, as it was the religious center during the days of his life on earth. Thus, Solomon's temple, although physically lost, remains alive in the tradition, spirituality, and history of Israel. What we know for sure is that Solomon's temple was a landmark not only in the religious history, but also in the culture and identity of Israel. Its destruction by the Babylonians was a deeply traumatic event for the people of Israel, who saw the loss of the temple as a symbol of the loss of God's presence among them. The mourning and exile that followed marked a turning point in Israel's history. Now imagine the impact of such destruction on the people. What did the temple represent to them, and how did the loss of such a grand structure reflect the loss of their connection with God? Grief, loss, and the search for spiritual restoration became a central theme for the people of Israel, who would only later be rebuilt with the Second Temple. But what do you think about the grandeur of Solomon's temple? How does it influence your understanding of the power of faith and the divine presence? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Let's delve deeper into one of the most mysterious stories in the Bible, the Tower of Babel. Imagine a world where all of humanity speaks a single language and is united by a single purpose. The goal was to build a tower so immense that it would reach to the heavens. This audacious project was not only a symbol of greatness, but also an attempt to defy divine order and achieve human perfection. The Bible tells us that, seeing human pride in its attempt to reach heaven, God decided to intervene, confusing the languages and thus stopping the construction of the tower. But what do we know about the structure of this tower? The biblical text does not provide many details about the design of the tower, but we can infer a few things based on the architectural practices of the time and the possible intentions of the builders. The Tower of Babel is often described as a stepped tower, a large structure with several floors, each one higher than the one below, like a kind of pyramid. This type of construction was common in Mesopotamia, where great temples and ziggurats were built to bring the gods closer, symbolizing the connection between heaven and earth. The idea of building something that reached to the heavens was an attempt to reach the divine, to establish proximity to the supreme power. Although the biblical text does not provide us with exact details about how the tower was built, the mention of its grandeur and its desire to reach heaven suggests that it was a monumental structure, perhaps made of baked bricks and bitumen as mortar, materials typical of Mesopotamian architecture. The construction of large ziggurats, such as Etemenanki in Babylon, was also done in this way. Baked bricks were stronger and could be stacked on a large scale, while bitumen acted as a water-resistant mortar, essential for ensuring the stability of the tower. The structure of the Tower of Babel would probably have been a ziggurat, with several floors, each one narrower than the last, giving it the appearance of a stepped pyramid. Its base would have been gigantic, capable of supporting the enormous brick walls and the ramps that would have allowed access to the upper floors. As it rose, the tower would likely have been adorned with sculptures and inscriptions dedicated to the gods the builders worshipped, symbolizing human power and ambition to attain the divine. The Bible also suggests that the linguistic unity of humanity was broken just as the tower was nearing completion. This divine intervention, by confusing languages, not only prevented construction, but also forced the people to scatter, leading them to forming different nations and cultures. The construction of such a grandiose tower was closely linked to the idea that humanity could unite in a single project without the need for God. By interrupting this project, God showed that true unity and power come not from human self-sufficiency, but from their dependence on Him. But did the Tower of Babel really exist, as the Bible describes? Some theories suggest that the story of the tower could be a symbolic representation of a real historical event, perhaps related to the construction of ziggurats, such as the famous Etemenanki, which also had the goal of reaching the heavens, representing the connection between man and the gods. What we do know for sure is that regardless of whether the tower is literally true, the story of Babel carries a powerful message about human pride, the attempt to reach the divine through one's own means, and the importance of humility before God. The story also reflects the complexity of human languages and cultures, reminding us that divisions between peoples, while natural, have their roots in an ancient episode of pride and ambition. Now, what do you think? Was the Tower of Babel a real construction, a great structure that actually tried to reach the heavens? Or is this story a profound metaphor about human pride and the origin of languages and nations? Write in the comments and share your opinion. Let's talk about what remains of the magnificent structure of the Second Temple of Jerusalem, the Western Wall. Over the centuries, what remains of Herod's temple has been just a part of the retaining wall. But for millions of Jews, Christians, and people of faith around the world, it is much more than just a building. It is a symbol of resistance, pain, and memory. This wall, also known as the Western Wall, is the only visible remnant of the grandeur of the Second Temple, which was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. The original temple, one of the most imposing in the ancient world, was considered the spiritual center of Jerusalem and the place where the people of Israel connected directly with God. Its destruction not only marked the end of an era, but also represented an irreparable loss to the spiritual and cultural identity of the Jewish people. The Western Wall is what remains of this majestic temple, a wall that has stood the test of time and that paradoxically symbolizes both loss and hope. For centuries, the wall has been a place of prayer, mourning, and reflection for Jews, but also for anyone seeking a sacred place of peace and connection with the divine. Each stone of this wall carries with it centuries of history and suffering, but also of unshakable faith. Excavations around the Western Wall continue to this day, and archaeologists have made fascinating discoveries about the layers that make up the site. These excavations help to better understand the complex structure of the original temple and how Jerusalem was organized in ancient times. However, more important than any archaeological discovery, the wall represents a connection between the past and the present, between suffering and hope. Every time someone approaches the Western Wall, whether to pray, reflect, or simply admire its grandeur, something spiritual happens. Prayers are written on pieces of paper and inserted into the cracks of the wall, a practice that dates back centuries and symbolizes the search for God and reconciliation with the past. Each tear shed before the wall is a symbol of pain, but also of renewed faith and hope for a better future. Imagine, for a moment, standing before this wall. Look at it and feel the history pulsing through its stones. How does it make you feel? It is a place of deep reflection and spiritual connection. For millions of Jews, it is a place where they reconnect with the heritage and memory of a people. For Christians, it is a reminder of ancient Jerusalem, the place where Jesus walked and preached. With every prayer, with every wish cast into the wind, the Western Wall becomes a symbol of resilience. And at the same time, it reminds us of the fragility of our own existence and the importance of keeping our faith alive, even in the most difficult times. How important is this place to your faith and to the history of the people of Israel? Have you ever been to the Western Wall, or is there a place that represents a symbol of faith for you? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us what this wall and the history of Jerusalem mean to you. As we move forward in the study of the great biblical constructions and their archaeological discoveries, we find a constant tension between faith and science. Biblical archaeology, fascinating as it is, faces complex challenges. Since many of the accounts are ancient, often difficult to verify, and in some cases leave no tangible traces. Yet archaeology has unearthed. There is incredible physical evidence that provides context for these sacred stories. Discoveries at sites such as Jericho, Mount Ararat, and even the remains of Solomon's temple contribute significantly to a deeper understanding of biblical history. However, archaeological finds often fail to answer all questions, leaving room for faith to fill in the gaps. The question here is, to what extent should we allow faith or evidence to prevail? How can scientific evidence determine the veracity of biblical stories? What can we learn from this interaction between archaeological discoveries and our personal beliefs? Can science explain everything the Bible reveals to us, or are there things that are beyond human understanding? This is a profound reflection, and we would like to hear your opinion. Do you believe that science can fully explain the biblical mysteries, or should faith remain a link that goes beyond reason? Let us know in the comments. These great biblical constructions continue to defy human understanding, both for their grandeur and for the mysteries that surround them. As archaeology unearths more details about these structures, we invite you to reflect on the impact of these stories on our faith. And you, how do these discoveries affect us? Influence your belief? If you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Gold Bible channel for more content about faith, history, and mysteries of the Bible. See you in the next video.